What is up, home workout and bodyweight exercise fans? In today's video, I'll be talking a little bit about my personal beliefs. I said on Monday that I'll be doing every weekend a Zen video, which basically means that I'll be talking a little bit about my personal beliefs, the way I approach my life, my philosophy, my spiritual side, and stuff like that. So the way I see myself is a spiritual agnostic. So most of my life, until I was basically 27 years old, I was a hardcore atheist. And the reason I was like that was because, I thought that rejecting religion also meant that, I had to reject any kind of spiritual side in life. For me, that was kind of the same, and I think that a lot of people have that misconception. Not being religious doesn't mean that you can be a little bit more spiritual, more open to bigger ideas, to things that we probably maybe can't understand yet, but do exist. Again, I'm not attached to that. I'm not attached to a belief of an afterlife. I don't have any rigid ideas like that because I just don't know. How can you know if things like that exist if there's no proof, if it only exists in scriptures and stuff like that? Again, I'm not criticizing, people who are religious or any kind of religion, just sharing with you my personal belief system. So being a completely an extreme atheist most of my life made me really depressed as a person, led to being really afraid of death, and that's kind of how I lived my life. Remember, I had nightmares as a kid because I couldn't accept the fact that people die and that's it. I grew up in an extremely Christian society, like if you weren't a Christian where I grew up, you were kind of like an alien. But for some reason, that was not a belief system I could personally accept. It didn't make sense in me. So for some reason, I don't know, I kind of figured that out early in my life by myself. And that left me quite lonely because, everybody around me was pretty certain that, that belief system was correct and that was the truth and all that. And for me, that created a lot of loneliness. That was the beginning of me becoming a really introverted person. That was the beginning of me becoming a really pessimistic person. And that led to low self-confidence and so many negative things in my life. I'm not saying that, that's the way with everyone, but that's how it worked with me. I'd like to hear also your ideas if you have similar stories. So the moment I lost my leg when I was 27 and for some reason started meditating, that was the first step into being a more spiritual person. That was the first step that changed me so much. I just, for some reason, after, and I even mocked meditation, before I got started. For me, it was just that like silly hippie stuff people did. But for some reason, I read this interesting book that backed meditation up with science, and I said, what the hell, I'll give this a try. Now, one thing that happens with beginner meditators, sometimes, it's rare, not always, is that because you're a beginner, because you're not attached to specific results, you can by accident fall in really deep meditational states. So that was one thing that happened with me. And that was like a day that really changed me as a person, because I experienced a completely different level of being, of awareness, of consciousness, if you want to use that word. So that day that this happened to me changed me, basically put a seed in me that created a whole reaction of changes in my life. And again, it wasn't easy. It wasn't that I didn't put effort, because it was so much also personal effort that I put in combination with meditation to change as a person. Constantly doing things that make me uncomfortable. For example, from being a completely introverted person, I thought to myself, well, what's the most uncomfortable thing I could do to myself, to start becoming more social again? Because I spent 5 years depressed in a room. Now, being like that made me even more. So being introverted before that and going through that made me like super introverted. So I couldn't socialize with people. I couldn't make simple small talk. I couldn't start a conversation. That was, I had become a really problematic person. So I started my YouTube channel and, just put me out there in the world and put my videos, and felt uncomfortable as hell. But that, the moment you start doing something that's uncomfortable is the moment that you you start getting used to it if you keep on doing it. So nowadays, 3 years later, talking with people, being open, making people open up to me as well, for some reason is something that keeps on happening. I have amazing conversations with people I don't know, and it's just become so easy. Like today, I went to this park and walked for an hour, met really cool people, met this neuroscientist guy, talked for hours on neuroscience and meditation, met other people, random people, and just started talking, and it's so easy. And I realized, how difficult this was 2 years or 3 years ago, and how easy it's nowadays, and how much more self-confidence I have. Low self-confidence was another thing that accompanied me most of my life, basically all of my life until 3 years ago. And again, I also practiced a lot of self-confidence. If you practice something a lot, and even if you fake it a lot, at some point it becomes real, and of course I read a lot of books, and I just made myself uncomfortable with pretending to be self-confident in daily situations, and at some point it became my reality, and life is so much better now. So for some reason, meditation is the catalyst that gets people started with big changes. I've been meeting a lot of people who have similar stories with mine, how meditation changed their life. Of course, don't there's this notion that some people think that they will start meditating and magical things will happen. No, it's not like that. It's a slow process. It's like the example I like to give is that some people start to meditate for a few days, and because they don't see a big difference, they quit on it. And that's like an obese person training for a few days, and since he's not ripped after a few days, he says that working out doesn't work or dieting doesn't work. So it takes a lot of patience. You need to write books. The Joy of Living by Mingyur Rinpoche, followed by The Science of Enlightenment, are my two favorite and most recommended books. Read them in that order if you're interested. Having a mentor, people who know a little bit of more stuff. I met a really cool teacher at the Vipassana retreat I did on September, so I went on a 10-day meditation retreat. These are all over the world. They are called meditation Vipassana retreats. They're free, so you can donate if you want after. They're based on donations. That's another thing that helped me move on with my meditation, helped me figure out things, because I had a really cool teacher there that gave me some insights with some sticking points I had with my practice at that point. And things like that, starting to believe in a little bit of having the mindset that if I put a lot of effort, things will go my way, and not being attached to the fact that not having the secret mindset, that the secret, the book is a book that says if you believe enough in something, it's gonna happen. That is important, but that's like 50%. The other 50% is extremely daily hard work. practicing what you want to accomplish, aiming, planning for them, creating the ideal situations for them to happen, going through a ton of failure, getting comfortable with failure. These are things I did so much. So what I'm trying to say today, I guess, is that give meditation a try. It's amazing how much sitting in silence every day for a little bit can start creating domino effects in your life of positive changes. And again, meditation is not just about emptying your head. It's about learning to see what's going on in your head, understanding yourself more. You can do that also with philosophy, with reading Stoicism, things like that. The Obstacle is the Way, amazing book about Stoicism and people who, used problems as positive things in life. That's another thing I've learned to do. I've learned that the moment I open my mind when negative things happen in my life, instead of depressing myself, closing my mind, the moment I'm more observant during problematic times, once something bad happens, if I'm really open and try to flip it into an opportunity, I can usually do that. Nowadays, I see problems as puzzles. Every time something negative happens, I try to see, okay, how can I flip this into something positive? And it's funny how much that often turns out to be the case, Of course, you're going to suffer in life. Things will be uncomfortable, but you can always find the silver lining in problems, or you can even completely switch them into opportunities, as I said. These are a lot of things I'd like to talk about on these Zen weekend videos. So another thing that happened with me, with my meditation, was that I had some really weird, deep states in the beginning. This happens with beginners sometimes because you're not expecting anything. You can accidentally fall in really deep states. These are things that really changed me as a person. I might talk about them in the future. Again, some people would probably use these as, in a really dogmatic way, say that they're something a lot more than they actually are. Saying maybe turning them into religious experiences, but I'm pretty unattached to things like that. When really cool things happen, when weird things happen, I've learned not to be attached to them because they always fade away, and reality is what is most constant. For me, the truest thing that I experience every day is the peace, the inner peace that I reach when I'm meditating in the morning, the clarity I have in my mind. So that was all for today. My call to action for you is get started with meditation. Give it a try. It can be the beginning of a lot of change in your life. It can be a catalyst for a lot of positive situations. Again, I'm not saying that this is the only thing you should do, but it's the best start I found. It's the best place to start from. So that was all. I hope you like these videos. Let me know what you think about them in the comment section below. Let me know what you would like to hear more about in these kinds of videos. And until next time, keep on meditating.